I want you to go first, actually, because you're not going to believe mine, and I'm slightly anxious you're going to pour oil on my water or water on my oil or something.
Very dare you. As if I would.
Well, you might. You might.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Hi Judith, how are you? How's your week been?
I'm all right, Nicola. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Yes, very well. Considering I had to drive to further than Wales yesterday and back, which I didn't realise.
Further than Wales? I thought you were in Cheltenham.
Yeah, exactly. Which is further than driving to Wales, isn't it? Because you have to go up as well as across.
A bit up.
Yeah, I took.
Let's talk about geography because you know yours is not top notch, is it, darling?
It's not really, no. I took the speaking gig, which I'll tell you about, and I had this in my head. It was near Oxford or Cambridge for some reason. I thought Cheltenham and Gloucester. It sounds middle of the country.
Oh, Cheltenham is a bit to the left of Oxford. Yes, yeah. That's not bad.
So yeah. I know, but then I looked at the map and thought, my God, it's miles away. So I booked up to go and stay at the hotel where the event was, and I thought it was a hotel, and they took my booking fine and everything. And I made the booking. I said I'd like to have dinner, and this little message came back saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, the chef's off." I said, "The chef's off the night before a big do like that? You must."
Well, that's your own personal Jeremy Clarkson moment.
I know, yeah. Oh, was it? Right? Is that what he did?
That's how he got into trouble, is because they got back from a long day of shooting and there was no hot food.
Well, that would incense anyone. I think it was perfectly reasonable behaviour.
Well, unfortunately, he took it too far and hit somebody, but there we go.
Yeah. So I said, okay, whatever. And so I arranged to go for dinner with some other people and turned up at this place, absolutely beautiful. The kind of place, it was an Elizabethan manor. And the kind of place you imagine is going to be haunted because it was so old.
Yes, I'd seen your photographs with the bunny and everything.
It was lovely, absolutely lovely. But then,
why didn't they do dinner? I don't understand. Was it not a hotel?
Well, it's not a hotel. No, it's an event place for weddings and conferences and things. So they don't.
Okay.
So they only put chefs on when they've actually got someone, something to do. And
okay.
I didn't realise that at all. But the young lady there who welcomed me was great. She upgraded my room, which as it turned out, not a great room because there was some sort of generator running all night underneath me. So I'm going to have to complain about that, I'm afraid. But it was beautifully done, and I'll tell you more about the whole event in the What's in Press section. But
okay.
My other news is I've sold 18 places on my Facebook ads course in 1 week.
Well, that's very exciting. How many did you want to sell?
20. So I've come very close, and if I send one more email, I'll probably reach my target, which is.
Oh, well, how marvellous!
Yeah, and you know me, I'm not one for setting targets, but I did on this occasion.
Oh, very good. I think you can use a kinder word than target, which is as I would do. You set an intention around it, or you visualise the 20 people, or something like that. But anyway, you've got that, which is brilliant, isn't it?
I think that might be a client challenge of the week 1 week. The whole
about targets.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'm writing it down. Hang on, I've got notes here. Targets.
We always forget, don't we, to write things down?
Yeah, we do. Now, I think excitement of excitements. It's episode 30 today, isn't it?
No.
I think it is.
Oh, I've got no idea.
I think it is.
Well, that is extremely exciting. Who'd have thought it when I came up with the brilliant idea at Christmas?
You did. Annoying to say, but it was your brilliant idea. Yes.
So what have you been up to this week then?
Oh, I've had a fantastic week, Nicola.
Oh,
I've had a fantastic week. You're not going to believe it when I get to what's fueled your fire, but I'll tell you. So June, we turned the corner into June, and somehow that just feels wonderful. I've no idea. I feel fantastic. I've got 3 new clients. I'm full of optimism. I'm upbeat. There was a full moon. I feel energetic. I've got new clients, old clients, ideal clients. I just feel like I've turned a corner. Lots of opportunity, very busy, and marvelous spontaneous things have happened, like one of my rental flats has been empty for 15 months.
oh, that's a long
And
time.
it is a long time. The local agent and the local managing agent were unable between them to solve the problem. So it's been, and then a friend of mine who owns a property company said, "Oh, just give it to me." And she went down with their team and they sorted it. I mean, how brilliant is that?
That's amazing. So what was the problem then?
Initially, there was water coming in from an outside wall, which the managing agents couldn't fix until they put up scaffolding at some point later in 2015. But they did agree to decorate the wall so that I could re-let it. And then when the letting agent went round, he discovered there was a leak and nobody knew where it was coming from, and it rotted all the kitchen cabinets or something like that. And then, of course, when my team went in, they said, "Why didn't they just think to turn the water off?" Oh, God, it's so obvious, isn't it? Isn't it?
It does make you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, she told me a very funny story, if I could just go on for 5 seconds,
go on.
where her team were 2 Romanians and an old age pensioner manager guy that she works with, who she's known for a long time and trusts, and very reliable, great sense of humour, absolute trooper. And when they got there, of course, there was no electricity, so they had to go and put electric on the meter, like you do in a rental flat.
Yeah.
And he came back, and the 2 Romanians were upstairs in the flat, and he was downstairs wherever you put the meter key in. And he goes, "Is the electric on?" And they went, "No." Then he walked up the stairs and turned the light switch on, and it came on.
Never overlook the obvious.
He said, "Turn the light switch on if you want the lights to come on. Turn the tap off if you want the water to stop." I mean, don't start me, Nicola. But anyway, the point of this is that just somebody, when I was talking to a friend, she said, "Oh, just give me the keys, we'll sort it out." She went down out of the kindness of her heart with 3 members of her team, sorted it out. They're even going to find me a tenant.
Oh, really?
Well, what it proves is actually the existing people, the incumbents in the position of managing agents, they weren't doing their job. Letting agents, they weren't doing their job. Clean, fresh, pair of eyes on it.
Yeah.
With can-do type of mentality, all problems evaporate.
I know. And it's also about focusing on it until it gets sorted, isn't it? Which is an interesting one, because, obviously if a managing agent has got 200 flats to look after.
Yeah, but it's cost them. Well, the managing agent, one of their things they charge me for is clearing the rubbish from outside, but clearly that hadn't been done, so we just did that, But the rental agent, it's cost them 50 times 15. It's cost them 750 quid not to have a solution in the last 15 months.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Beggars belief, really. Why?
It does. But the point of this story is not a good moan-in. The point of this story is that the abundance for me in June has just been massive, including a friend who just went and sorted out a problem I'd got that I couldn't sort out myself.
That's amazing. And that's the old tolerations getting zapped by other people once you list them, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting. She said, the sad thing was, she said, "Why didn't you tell me this a year ago?" Well, yes, good point. Because actually I didn't want to be a drain on the person who was already busy, I think is the answer to that.
Yeah, but you know what they say, if you want something done.
Well, then that's what's going to come up later in this call as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, brilliant. So tell me what's fueled your fire, because it sounds like there's something quite exciting to...
Well, there is something set for it, but I want you to go first, actually, because you're not going to believe mine, and I'm slightly anxious you're going to pour oil on my water, or water on my oil, or something.
Very dare you. As if I would.
Yeah, well, you might. You might. You go first. Tell me about your conference, because I want
what you're going to say now.
Yeah, you do. Tell me about your conference, first of all.
Oh, Brace. Well, that's not what's fueled my fire, actually.
Okay.
What's fueled my fire is focus, funnily enough, because Sarah just popped back. She's in between house sits. She's on her way to house sit for Paul and Philly, actually.
I knew that, actually, because I saw her say on Facebook where she was headed, and I knew that we had a little clutch of people in that direction. Yeah.
Yes. And but focus is the thing, because as obviously I've got my Facebook ads course now, and then I've got my Facebook ad service, and I've just signed up my first 2 people from the Vegas trip, so that's paid for itself and more. And much more, in fact. And so the Facebook ads and the Fast Start Masterclass are my 2 flagship products now. And my Facebook ad service is the service that I do. And I just, I've actually even knocked the other podcast on the head because I it's got to 250 episodes. It's not getting the traction this one is. It's great as a body of work, but I didn't really enjoy it towards the end. So unless I come across someone really, really interesting that I want to interview, it's on hold. So I've now got one podcast, 2 products, and 1 service, and that just feels fantastic.
Yeah.
And
I momentarily lost concentration when you were telling me what the 2 products were. Could you tell me that again?
Just the Facebook ads course and the Fast Start Masterclass.
Okay.
So I've got one product for my clicks and leads website. If they don't want to hire me, they can buy the home study course. And on my Business Success Factory, there's one product, which is the Fast Start Masterclass, which has got a video launch sequence, evergreen video launch sequence, which brings in people, slowly or fast, depending on how much traffic I put into it. And it just feels amazing not to have to create anything new, not to have any uncertainty about what I'm doing going forward for the next year at least. It just feels amazing. I feel genuinely like I can start to just keep putting systems in place and pour traffic in the front end and perhaps take some time off and look after myself for a change.
I mean, the interesting thing about you and me is that we've known this for a long time and we've taught it, but we've been terribly slow to adopt it ourselves.
Well, I think it was that finding something that works. It's not just about finding something that you love to do. It's finding something that works financially as well as that you love to do it. And you're much more likely to find something that works financially if you're doing what you love to do, as you talk about every week. But I struggled to find something that I could get paid for. That old Venn diagram. What people want, what you want to do, and what people will pay you for.
Okay.
And what you love to do, yeah. So that's been my challenge, and the fact that I'm there now is just an awesome feeling.
So you're not going to tell me about the conference yesterday in this call, then?
No, I'll tell you about who or what's that in the who or what's impressed section.
Okay, because rumour reached me that you were talking about me from the stage. Did you say something nice?
I always talk about you from the stage, Judith. You're a large part of my life and a very special.
Did you say something nice? That's what I want to know.
I did. Of course I did.
You didn't say that old battle axe that I run the podcast.
No, I say my esteemed ex-business partner, now co-podcast host. It makes me laugh every time. I did say that you were rather fluffy on occasions, but that I was rather geeky, and we set each other off rather well. It was delightful to see Yvonne Halling there. It really was. She looked so well, and she's doing so well, and it was just. She's
doing so well. Actually, my spy yesterday was Veronica Pullen, but I will quiz Yvonne as well. Thanks.
Who was the other person?
Veronica.
Veronica's a joy. She really is. I think it's the first time I've actually met her in person. But because we've talked so often on webinars and I've seen her picture on Facebook so often, I honestly just felt like she was an old friend. It was really bizarre. And I went out for dinner the night before to a fabulous Thai restaurant. If you live in Cheltenham or surrounds, do contact Adrian Savage and INSA and ask her where we went for dinner, because I've got no idea. But the food was absolutely stunning. It was one of the best Thai meals I've ever had, I think.
It's Cheltenham is somewhere I would consider living. It's a pretty nice place, and it's a nice part of the UK as well. Inland
though, Judith, no sea, no rivers.
There is no sea, no, but it's not far away. You're on the edge.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I couldn't live away from the sea, I don't think. Even though I never go to the beach.
Today I saw on Facebook that London, my hometown, where I've lived for, 40, maybe 50 years, I don't know, is voted everybody's favourite city in the world again. Yeah. And, I hardly ever go and do the London things. I'm so proud of London, but, I hardly ever go and do Londonish things.
But don't you just appreciate it as you're going about your business?
Well, I do, but I don't, that's quite rare. I mostly work at home. We're virtual, aren't we? So actually I could be anywhere in the world, and I think, yay, I'm a Londoner. And I think, I'm not quite sure the last time I went to London. Much I do know. I went up for lunch the day after the election, which was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, fine. So tell me about...
Well, I'm on fire, Nicola. I'm a danger to be near. So we're recording this podcast on a Thursday, Normally we do it on a Wednesday. Lucky you didn't get me yesterday, because I was speeding. I was high as a kite because I was so excited. I was so excited about my new thing, I can't tell you. I have been Googling for months to find what the precise terms I've been Googling are. What are the top network marketing opportunities of 2015? And I didn't find anything. But I found something through Facebook, and I am so mad about it. It's in pre-launch, so I can't tell you about it.
Stop. So you were the person who once told me, because I've always been occasionally sucked up into these things, you were the person who once told me that the profit margin wasn't enough, the reward effort ratio wasn't big enough in network marketing.
I don't think I told you that's not my view, but I tell you why I am against it. I have been against it historically. I'm brilliantly for it for Americans, because Americans are not prejudiced against it. In the UK, we are prejudiced against it, and it draws in a lot of opportunity seekers who mostly fail, because there are elements of the model which is broken. So, for instance, I have no inclination whatsoever to buy stock, hold stock, and distribute stock of health supplements, weight loss supplements, skincare products, or aloe vera juice. I am interested in losing weight, which we'll come to in a moment, but not through anything like that. And I'm not interested in looking younger. You know me, I am what I am.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in any of that kind of SH1T. But however, the principles of network marketing, if you, and we meet people like this occasionally, and I still meet them now, quite a lot of my clients want a manual. They say, just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
So if you're an entrepreneur, there's enough rope to hang yourself with every day, because you don't actually know what to do. If you want to be self-employed, and increasingly a lot of people have got to be self-employed because there are no jobs, you might not have an idea of your own. So what network marketing can teach you is all the things you need to know in order to be able to run your own business, and those are transferable skills. So they teach you sales and marketing and networking, leadership, management, admin, asking for the business and not taking it personally when you get a no, running a team. All of these things are vital business and life skills, actually, which will transfer.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, and Robert Kiyosaki, as you know, has written a thin book, and I've ordered another copy of it to reread it, that says, if he was starting again, that's what he'd do.
No, actually, back up. What they actually say is, if I was starting again, I'd start a network marketing company.
Well, fair enough, but also he does say in this book he hasn't done it. So it's the only one of his books that he hasn't actually done what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But, so an awful lot of people are going to be unemployed and unemployable, and one of my, we talk about this quite often, and I say to you it's very rare that I meet them, because I draw entrepreneurs towards me. I don't think it's suitable for entrepreneurs, and I think there's an awful lot of people it's not right for, because traditionally they teach you to start with your friends and family. How creepy. You start with your friends and family and fail, and then next time you do it, your friends and family are not interested. Honestly, that would not be my route. Fortunately, I already have a network. Now, what it's going to do is get me out of the house. I've already spoken to put an advert on.
Get you out of the house?
I put an advert on Facebook on Sunday, and I've already spoken to about 50 people. I've put most of them off on purpose. I've said, look, here are 3 reasons why it might put you off. 1, it's network marketing. Most of them fall at that hurdle, which means I don't even need to talk to them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to run a team here, and I'm going to report this week on week live in our podcast. Okay.
Wow,
so
okay.
I am on fire with this.
Okay, so you can't tell us too much about it because it's in pre-launch. Can you tell us which industry it's in?
No.
Oh.
All I can tell you is 100% digital.
Okay.
So there's no stock.
Okay.
I can't. I'm not really allowed to tell you anything at all yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So I could
tell you off the podcast after this, but I can't announce it to the world. When it goes live, I will.
Okay. So how did you find it if nobody's allowed to talk about it?
Somebody who was a client of mine in 2006-07.
Yeah.
Because we're not allowed to talk about it on Facebook, I saw her make some oblique comment on Facebook, and Facebook is one of my channels to the world, and I'm very observant either at a wide awake level or at a subliminal level. And I saw this comment and I thought to myself, that sounds interesting. And then another colleague who that first one had mentioned it to mentioned something else to me, and I said, oh, is it this thing I saw the first lady talking about? She said, no, but that is, X, Y, and Z. And I thought, oh, that sounds riveting. They showed me a 20-minute video. I got it like that, and I'm in. I've been looking for this for months. I've been looking for this since before Christmas. I've been saying to you on and off the podcast, I really want a fantastic new opportunity that I can do alongside my existing thing. I don't know what it is, but I'll know when I find it, and I found it.
So why just out of interest, because it sounds like everything's going brilliantly for you. I'm going to ask a question everyone's thinking. Why were you looking for another opportunity, and what made you think MLM might be an MLM opportunity might be the right one?
Yeah, I think I'll answer the second question first, if I may. I knew, the thing when I was Googling, I knew I didn't want to do the traditional MLM, i.e. So, for instance, I coach a lady who is somebody who's a serial network marketer, and the product that she brought to me when we started working together over a year ago was fantastic. I tried it, I liked it. It was one of those things. It had it was all health related.
Yeah.
She was taking it. She looked fantastic on it. Her husband had been taking it. Blah, blah, blah. I took it. It made me feel good. And just like the aloe vera juice or the supplements or whatever it is, if you can afford to invest an additional 60 quid a month in your health, good on you. But actually, for those of us in the depths of the recession where we've slashed and burned our expenses, who's going to add back in another 60 quid? I'm not, and I don't think most people are. So I think that's a hard sell. So I knew it wasn't going to be one of those. But I like the principles because, if I'm running a team, it's business coaching, because what MLM is teaching people to run their own little business. When we did the cleaning business, Nicola, it was exactly the same. Through the context of the cleaning business, I could teach people to run their own business, and that's what I already do for a living.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
And when you came back from Vegas and told me that that personal development was a much bigger field than either my field or yours, I've been thinking these thoughts all along the line. I've been thinking, right, the ultimate goal of MLM is you create ultimately a completely passive source of income.
Okay, so here's I'm with you on all of this. But my concern would be, what if you so what the traditional MLM thing is, you send your prospects directly to the website provided by the company. But I've always known, and the most successful MLM people build their network first, and then they send them to the website of the current.
Well, actually, at the moment, I don't even have a website to send them to until it launches. Yeah. And the people who are at the top of it, I don't think this is traditional MLM. What it is a marketplace that has never used network marketing principles before to sell their thing. And I don't know whether they went to the network marketing boys or the network marketing boys went to them, but however that marriage was created, one or other party saw a massive opportunity that hadn't been exploited before. And it's the market that they're going into is global and humongous. I can't tell you. Well, when we're launched, I'll tell you all about it, and you'll see.
And I love the idea of having a project update section in our podcast.
Yeah.
Because we could let's talk about that afterwards, because we could perhaps lose one of our sections and talk about a project update, and I'll pick one to report on, and it might.
I can't remember what the first half of your question was. The second one was why MLM.
So here would be my concern, as I didn't quite finish saying what I was going to say. If you build your network so all of your prospects come through and into your mailing list first, I would be, is much more comfortable. But I just want to make sure that everyone knows out there that if you're in an MLM project and the people at the top decide to stop, you're buggered unless you've created your own list. Because if you've got your own list, you can then move to another opportunity and take all your people with you. So
nobody's ever going to stop this one. It's not going to be a risk in this one, I tell you. Once you get the context of this, and I'll tell you afterwards, and then I'll tell everybody, I'll tell our audience in 2 or 3 weeks' time when I'm allowed to.
Okay.
Nobody's ever going to leave this one or stop it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'm intrigued to hear more. Cool. Okay, so that's what's fueled your fire, and I can hear it in your voice. Blimey.
Yeah. Don't stop me now. I'm having such a good time.
So tell me how it's going to get you out of the house.
Because actually, I think that's where you were going. I thought that's where you were going with the thing about traditionally network marketing, you send them towards your website. No, you don't. What these big cheeses in network marketing are teaching me is it's all offline. You meet people. And, so actually I'll be chatting to people in shops and petrol stations. I mean, I've started with my network, but, every single person I meet, actually, one of the ladies in this, I really liked her. She said, everybody that you meet is a suspect. And they only turn into a prospect when you've had a little conversation with them. But everybody within 3 feet is a suspect.
God, you're going to be wearing a T-shirt soon, aren't you? Blah, 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 stop me and ask me how.
No, I am, Nicola, yes.
Do you feel isolated and alone in running your own home-based business? Do you have worries, doubts, fears and resistance which sometimes make you feel like giving up? Don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, you're perfectly normal. It can be scary all by yourself. But what if you could learn how to become a confident business owner, how to trust yourself more and grow your income, relax and be more creative and productive? Small Business Big Magic is a unique business mentoring group providing grounded practical support and advice, fast responses to your questions, inspiration and solutions to boost your clarity and help you find direction, focus and success in your life and business. Join Small Business Big Magic today for the friendship and encouragement of others just like you and the enthusiasm of a coach who gets you and your business. There's big magic for your small business at judithmorgan.com.
Excellent. What's our client challenge of the week then?
Oh, well, this is quite an interesting one. Let me just have a look at my notes here. Okay, so how do you price a job you've never done before and have no idea how much of your time it will take or what the costs involved will be?
Oh, that's a good one. So
Yeah.
I could put my digital marketing hat on here and think if someone came and asked me to do something for them or as a partnership, how would I price it?
You've never done it before, so you don't know how much of your time it's going to take, and you don't know what the costs are involved, okay?
Yeah.
So you're working blind, and it's the first time you've ever done it. And I think the fact that it's the first time you've ever done it is quite important, actually, because I think this was a client brought this in on Monday morning, and I think you're hovering on the edge, and you're going, oh, I've got to do something. I have no idea how to do it. Okay. And so she wasn't starting. So I think you've got to start, one, to try and work out all of that. And the second thing is you've got to think, right, if I get it wrong the first time, what's the other benefits to me? I.e., will I be able to replicate it second, third, fourth, and therefore everything I learned in the first one, even if it's expensive, won't matter because I'll be able to use it in the future. Those are the only kind of ideas I could come up with.
Okay, so what I'd probably do is I would start with my hourly rate and then double it because there's the opportunity cost of what you're not doing while you're doing this. So say, for example, if I thought it's going to take 2 or 3 days a week.
Well, she is doing it for a client. She's doing it for a client who's going to pay, but, we don't have a budget and we don't really have a full brief yet, both of which we need, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And the client will be very reluctant to give her a budget because, of course, clients want to get things done as cheaply as possible, whereas one has to go in and...
In this example, I'm not sure it will be as cheaply as possible, actually, because there's an in memoriam aspect to it. I've got here, what have I got here? Quantify and qualify the risks. And then I've put benefit next time. Yeah, I think, you've got to scope out the project, haven't you? And then you've got, imagine, in the world where people give you an estimate, like builders and plumbers and things like that, they know because they've done it hundreds of times. But, there are quite a lot of jobs where, a bit like the one in my flat, actually, what's it going to cost? Oh, I don't know until I start.
So how would you go about it then?
Well, I think I would always have a full and frank discussion with the person on the other end and say, look, I've never done this before like this. I've no idea. You've got to scope out the budget. Then I would quote it in a way that went, right, I think it's probably going to be of the order of this. And my hourly rate is costed in at that. And I will let you know at every stage when we need more time at that hourly rate and why we need it.
I would not be doing it on an hourly rate. I'd be doing it on a project basis, and I'd be looking to get an up.
But then imagine a project creeps 3 times. So you've got to have the provision to be able to add in extra time.
Yeah, But there's also got to be, for me, otherwise I wouldn't take it on or be interested at all, an element of share of a percentage of the upside.
Yeah, I think this is the wrong one for that, but because I don't want to tell you the details of it because it's intensely personal to my client. But I think this is the wrong one for that. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, so some element of partnership in it. I think, when I'm talking to my clients and there's something like this where there's a sort of risk element to it, I always think, are there any other upsides for me? So in this example, for instance, I know that this client wants to go on and do things like this. This is just the first time she's done it. So she'll get a massive amount of learning from the first time, which might be expensive, but will be cheap when she goes on to replicate it later.
Why is there a risk to your client of doing this if she's...
Because she's never done it before, so she doesn't know how much of her anything it's going to take.
Yeah, but if she's charging on an hourly basis and she's not getting a cut of any upside, she's covered, isn't she? Because she'll be charged.
Well, I don't know that she is. I don't know that she is charging on an hourly basis. That's the thing. I mean, in the absence of a good conversation with her clients, I think that's what most people are reluctant to do. Let's have a full and frank, discussion.
And the time to do that is at the beginning, before any money hands.
It is. And then you scope it out and say, look, here's my best guess. And then you put elements in it. So, if it was a builder, he'd say, 2 man days taking the roof down, for instance, put elements in it like that. So the client can see what's involved and say that you'll keep her involved every step of the way, maybe weekly or fortnightly, project updates of how much of the budget you've spent doing what, that kind of thing. But I think the client's got to share some of the risk because she doesn't know either, but she wants my person to do this job. So she's personally selected my person for a particular reason, but my person's never done it before. So the two of them have got to share that risk, I think.
Yeah, but the only problem with doing it the way you just outlined there is that there's no profit built in unless you build the profit into the hourly rate.
It's not that kind of a job, Nicola. It's an in memoriam. Somebody's died. Okay, it's not that kind of a job. It's not about profit. It's about how much will the client pay to commemorate the life of somebody they've lost. It's not a profit thing. But it is. She has come to my client who's an expert in her field. She just has never done what this person wants her to do before.
Well, why is it not about profit? To be honest, I respect the fact that it's in memoriam to the other client, but
they're not going to sell it. I don't think they're going to sell it. It's difficult to describe without giving away the confidentiality.
I understand.
I hear what you're saying. What you're saying works broadly in every other possible, example of this that we could think of.
Because really, if you're doing something for a job or a specialty or a profession, you've got to make a profit, or you're not going to stay in business. So I think this is in effect what do you call it when you give somebody? This is a commission. That's what it's like. Somebody's commissioning somebody to do a piece of work. Yeah,
so it's a bit like when you. Yeah,
it's like building.
So, for instance, going back to my builder analogy. There's no profit in that if you have an extension on your house. It's more similar to that.
Well, if you have an extension on your house, of course the builder's going to make a profit.
No, not the builder. The commissioner is not selling the extensions.
Yes, I understand. So, I'm not interested in the person who's commissioning the work. If let's say it's a painting or a statue or a sculpture or something, or a garden being created or something. The person doing the work. With respect, it's not any of their business what it's for. They should only be doing the work if they're getting paid a good hourly rate to cover their living expenses, and then they're making a profit as well.
They're slightly more engaged in the project than that emotionally. But I think the problem here is, let's not get into the specifics of it. The problem is, how do you do something for the first time if you've never done it before and you've no idea how to do it? And I think the answer is you've got to start. You've got to have a proper conversation with the person on the other side of the contract, and you've got to explain why you don't know, so that both of you are partners, in effect, in getting the best outcome. I mean, the person who's commissioning her is not trying to rip her off.
No, of course not. Of course not. But then the other person, it makes it more complicated that the other person is emotionally involved as well.
Because they're not emotionally involved, just... I don't want to give away the specifics. They're not emotionally involved, but there's a chain of events that led to this happening that my client is happy that she was part of.
Okay. Yeah. See, emotions are any emotions cloud one's financial judgment.
Yeah, but all work is done by a human being who is also an emotional thing.
Hold on, caller. It's the lovely postman who has timed his arrival perfectly. Hold on 1 second.
Well, no, she's left me, hasn't she? She's left me with this space to fill.
Oh, I haven't left you. I'm still here. Sarah's up the door.
Good. Excellent. Good. I thought I was going to have to fill empty air by myself for a minute.
Well, by singing in that lovely way you have, which cracks me up every time when I hear it on the. No, I think Sarah's handling it, so that's all good. It's okay. So if let's take the emotion out of it for a second. What I'd do is I would get my hourly rate. I would put a profit. Either the profit would be built into the hourly rate, or I'd add a profit margin on, and then I would go to the person, have that discussion you've just said, and said, this is what we're going to do. You need to come. You need to tell me what your budget is, etc. The fact that there's emotions involved makes it a lot more complicated to work out. But definitely have all the conversations at the beginning of the project, because
I don't think the emotions are going to get in the way with this one, actually, because I think that there's sufficient time has passed since the loss of the person. But I think that these two will manage to broker a solution. But I think what's interesting here is the anxiety my client felt hovering on the brink of doing something she'd never done before. And actually, you could get stuck in that place. You could say, well, I've never done this before. I don't know how to do it. And actually, the thing is, you've got to start. You've got to get out a piece of paper and say, OK, let's have a go. Let's put something down. And let's run that past the client, and also have some sort of clause around variance.
Yes, it reminds me very much of when I walked into a building site at the bottom of Gray's Antiques, and Benny Gray said to me, right, this is going to be a 1950s cafe, get on with it, and by the way, the budget's zero. So I think that's because I was working to an absolute shoot. Basically, he said, get 3 quotes and take the middle one on everything, from the jukebox through to the building, the building. Yeah. So, I didn't know how to go about that. But again, exactly what you said, I sat there and I just thought, what are the different elements of a 1950s cafe? There's the jukebox, there's the food, there's the decor, there's the building works, there's the kitchen equipment. And yes, just broke it down and started to put it all together.
I think the thing is you start, and then you reach out to the different elements and you get their quotes and estimates, and you do the best you can. You start to pull some draft proposal together. Yeah. And I think because neither party has done it before, if there's a willingness on both parties, I think my client's anxiety is, what if I quote X and it costs Y? And I think if you've had this honest discussion and there's paperwork between the two parties, and you agree to share the risks of the bit between X and Y fairly, I think even if it costs my client the first time more money than she expected, I don't think it'll cost her money, but it might cost her more time than she expected. As long as you can use that in future iterations, then it doesn't matter.
Well, but it's okay. So here's my issue with this conversation. Why should your client have to take any risk at all for a project she's doing for someone else?
Because the client is asking her how much will it cost, and the answer is I don't really know.
Yeah. So what we've said is that she builds in. So they have a full and frank discussion, and she builds in the fact that these are the elements that may run over, etc., etc. But what you're saying there is that.
No, I'm saying that I think that's exactly right. However, we both know that whenever you work on a project, even if you've been that businesslike, other issues arise. I mean, you told us last week about mutually sacking a client because they weren't engaged in it in the way that you thought they were when you both set off. Things change, people happen. She'd had a baby, or somebody had had bereavement leave or something. Do you remember?
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So things change, don't they? When you're in business with human beings, things change, and you think you've got an agreement, and nobody's going to sue anybody because we haven't got the time or the money or the energy. So we all set off with the best of intentions, I think, and so you can be very businesslike. Why might it cost my client more time? Well, if she's learning, which there's an element of this, she's never done it before. If she's learning some of the mistakes that she might make, she might not think it's fair to charge her client for. For instance, I'm making this up. I don't know the answer to that question, but another element would be ever so slightly squidgy boundaries, perhaps.
Yes. See, I think that's down to the person you are, because I think if you're being hired by someone who knows that you don't know how to do it but knows you can puzzle it out, that other person should be willing to pay for your time learning on the job. I always pay my freelancers to learn. If I want them to watch videos, I pay them to do that. Even though that's because you've deliberately picked people that you want to train to do it your way. That's true. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas my client is already an expert. She's just not, and she's the expert of choice of the person that's hiring her. She's just not an expert yet in doing this thing. But actually, she wants to do this thing for herself.
Oh, okay.
So if some of the learning, if some of the learning is at her own expense, it won't be lost forever. It's an investment. That's what
absolutely. It's an investment in her own time. Yeah, no, I get that bit.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. Okay.
So I think the answer to the question is, how do you price a job you've never done before and you've no idea how much of your time it will take / costs involved? The answer is start.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I might go down the shed, get out a big A3 pad and write down big notes.
Brainstorm it all. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the way forward. And brainstorm all the things that can go wrong and brainstorm all the things that can go right. And make sure that your 1-page plain English agreement, 2-page plain English agreement covers both of those eventualities.
Yes, as long as you can think of them, which sometimes is a struggle. But yes, I agree. Yeah. Okay, well, we've done it, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so. So, word of the week then.
No, you go first.
Okay, unstoppable.
Mine is very close. Mine is very close to that.
It's a word I heard yesterday from one of the speakers at this event I went to, and he said, he just every time people ask him how he is, he says, "I'm unstoppable." Not I'm fine, or I'm not bad, or I'm okay. I'm unstoppable. Yeah. And I thought, my God, what would that do to you if in fact, he challenged us to say that for a week every time people say, "How are you?" I'm going to say I'm unstoppable, because if you indoctrinate yourself into being unstoppable, then little obstacles, little hiccups, little turns in the road, they just won't even faze you. You'll just keep going, won't you?
You know who taught me that about 10 years ago? Guy Levine.
Really?
When you ask Guy how he was, he used to say, "I'm fantastic. How are you?" Or something like that.
Oh, marvellous.
Yeah.
Oh, that's marvellous. I'm writing down his name there so we can link to him. Again, he gets mentioned regularly on this podcast, doesn't he?
I think unstoppable is fantastic, actually.
It's a great word because it takes into account the fact that you know that there are going to be obstacles and wrinkles in the road and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Or just find a way round them, through them, over them, under them.
Yeah. So mine is optimism.
Okay.
And I've written underneath, no yeah buts round here.
Optimism. That's a nice one. I'm writing it down. No yeah but. Yeah.
No yeah buts. People go yeah but. No.
Oh, I'm very prone to that myself sometimes.
Well, it's the same as unstoppable.
Yeah.
We don't have yeah buts. Unstoppable people don't do yeah buts, do they?
Yes, it's very true. And it is all about what's going on between your ears at the end of the day, isn't it? Success and happiness.
I tell you what I think is interesting, speaking to you today when we're anticipating a bit of a heat wave and England looks lovely. I bet it was a lovely drive up to Cheltenham, wasn't it?
Yes, it was all right, but my sat nav took me on a very strange route on the way home, which took me across the Cotswolds, which was rather lovely.
Well, exactly. So, green and pleasant. England's green and pleasant on your drive. And I think when it's the sun, when the sky is blue and the sun is shining and England is green and pleasant, it's very easy to be unstoppable. When it's trouble to be unstoppable is, I'll give you an example of this, actually. I've got this little thing on my computer. So it's called, hang on, I don't know what it's called. Yes, I do. It's called f.lux, f.lux. And when at sunset, it makes the ambient lighting on my computer turn itself down from bright daylight that you need this to see to it can be a little bit softer now because it's dark. And in November, it turns itself on at 3:45 in the afternoon because it's dark. Last night, it did it at 9:20. I cannot tell you what a difference that makes to my psyche, Nicola. It's harder for me to be unstoppable when it gets dark at 3:45 in the afternoon.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree. When I look out over a little sort of alleyway thing with lots of lovely trees at the end of it, and when the rain is pouring down in that alleyway, I feel completely devastated. So we've got to do something about that. I don't know what yet.
No.
But sunshine must be sought at that time of year, even if it's only half a year, in fact.
My uncle and my auntie, who owned a B&B on Weymouth seafront for an awful long time, they're both dead now, they used to work like fury in the British summer, but whatever the B&B season was, and then they used to take very, very long sunshiny cruises in the winter.
Oh, nice. So really everything done for you. And So are you thinking now that you might not emigrate forever? You might just come back, backwards and forwards every 6 months?
I've no idea, but I do know my new thing is going to enable me to do that. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's talk about who or what's impressed you. I've got two, so I'm going to choose on the hoof while you're talking. You tell me yours first.
Okay, well, I went to this thing in Infusionsoft Users Conference yesterday. I thought it was initially an Infusionsoft Certified Partners Conference, and they are my ideal joint venture partners. So I inserted myself as a speaker very easily, in fact, which was, but it turned out to be an Infusionsoft Users Conference, which was, there was a few people sprinkled in. In fact, someone I went on a date with when I was 21 was there. It was very odd. He came up and introduced me and he said, "I know you from somewhere." I said, "Yes, you do." I said, bloody, we went on a date once as well. Obviously it didn't work out. He was very taken by surprise. He'd totally forgotten me, which is rather insulting to my ego, but there you go.
How long ago was it, Nicola?
Oh, I mean, it was 30 odd years ago.
Well, I think fair enough.
Yeah, but you think you'd have stood out a bit more, wouldn't you? But anyway.
Well, it was only the one date, sweetheart, wasn't it?
It was, and I think he actually really fancied my friend who was with someone else. I think he was just dating me to get closer to her. Because at the end of the conversation yesterday, he said, "Oh, do remember me to Kim, won't you?" It's like, what? Anyway, it was the whole event was amazing. It was run by a guy I've never heard of before. I can't remember his surname off the top of my head because I'm rubbish with names, but it was brilliant. And it was the first time he'd done it. He put 100 people in a room at £65 a head. We had a very slap up lunch. The venue was really, really nice, and all of those speakers were there. They weren't getting paid, and they paid their own expenses. That's quite common, but we weren't allowed to sell. We just had to give absolute brilliant value for 45 minutes. And I had two sessions, so I was able to do a Facebook ad session and a leverage a content session, and everyone seemed to like it very much. But it was just, he said, and I had a conversation with him, and I said, so where are you making your money then? I said, because you're not making any profit at £65 a head. He said, no. He said, I'm doing this in the total expectation that something wonderful will come of it. And if I can just add value to he's one of the most successful Infusionsoft resellers outside the US, I think. And he was just adding value to all of the people that he'd recommended Infusionsoft to. And it was just a great event. And I thought, what a lovely, abundant way.
Well, you know what that's brand management.
Yes, I suppose it is.
It's brand management. It's about goodwill. It's about goodwill in the broadest sense, in a non-specific sense, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was very, very attractive. He came across really, on the conversation and in real life, he came across as a very laid-back, abundant, generous bloke. And everybody there was just having a lovely time. Nobody was selling to anyone. We were all just having a great time networking and learning from each other.
Marvellous.
It was good.
Marvellous.
What about you then?
Well, I've got two. I'm going to tell you about the one I was saving for next week, actually, because it's a better story. One of my clients is a writer. Her name is, she lives near you, she lives in Brighton, and she has a blog called Funny Matters. I think it might be called funnymatters.co.uk. We'll look it up. Her name's Angela. And Funny Matters, it doesn't sound funny, but bear with me. She started to write about her mother before, during, and after she died of cancer. So it was a cathartic blog, but funny. So it was about finding the humour in the darkest moments. As you do. And earlier in the year, she decided, I think before Christmas, she decided, and she was terrified of this, to turn it into a one-woman show, which she took to the Brighton Fringe.
Oh.
And she was on in May for 2 nights at the beginning and 2 nights at the end. And she came on my group call, because she's in my little group, and she told us a story 2 weeks ago, so bear with me while I tell you this story. She'd done the first 2 nights, and she'd been, although the first 2 audiences had appeared to her to enjoy it, there'd been a proper theatre critic in on the second night who'd absolutely slated it.
Oh dear.
But unbeknownst to her, and this is the point of the story, on the same night the critic was in, the Fringe Awards committee were also in, and she came back 2 weeks later and told me she'd been nominated, shortlisted, in amongst only 5 people, I think. I might be making that up, but a small list, for an award. She didn't win the award, but she went to the awards dinner. And so on the same night, she had the worst possible feedback on her event, alongside the best possible feedback of her event. So what we all have to remember is that both of those things are at play all of the time, and either one of them might be invisible.
It's very true. It's very true. And it's all so subjective, isn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, you know what else has happened is she's been brought to the attention of the Edinburgh Fringe, because the Brighton and Edinburgh Fringe work very closely.
Well, she was only going to do Brighton, and I said, don't you think you should take it to Edinburgh? And she said, well, not this year, but next year. But she said, I think I might do a London gig now. And, she's become very confident. She loved the second two gigs. She really enjoyed them, even though there was a gap in it. It's quite a small venue, only 50 people. I tell you what had happened is a man had contacted her on Facebook and said, I lost my wife only a couple of months ago, and I've got two children, and I'm in two minds whether it's too soon for me to come and see this. And she said, come, sit on the end of the row, and if you leave, you leave. And he came, he sat in the middle, he absolutely loved it, and he came afterwards and talked to her, and it was, she really helped somebody through this, which wasn't her main goal. She's a writer, actually. She writes proper things like stage plays and radio shows and things like that. So it was a showcase for her writing, which is excellent. And she'll be able to leverage that. But, so she's not primarily a performer. And she did a little tryout in London, and then another tryout in somewhere like Rustington, where she dried on stage, and it was ghastly for her, but not for the audience, interestingly. And it's just, the thing that impressed me was she came in 2 weeks ago and said, oh, it's all ghastly, I've had an awful review. She came back 2 weeks later and said, no, I'm nominated for an award. And the two people were in on the same night. Can you believe that?
Very bizarre, isn't it?
It's just, I just think we must remember that, don't look at life in the single dimension. Both of those things are going on all the time. People are loving you as well as the other people who don't get you.
Yeah, it's very true. And it was interesting because yesterday there was a keynote speaker who was fantastic, and he was very down to earth business coach kind of speaker, but he mentioned the law of attraction in one of his 5 things, and I thought, oh, that surprised me, because I thought, he didn't strike me as that kind of person. But he was saying, that it is always going on, and you can choose to focus. It was glass. He said something rather funny. He said, you've heard of the glass half full and the glass half empty. He said, well, my dad was so negative, he didn't have a glass.
And my best friend, who sent me a thing that said, and my glass, Judith's glass, is very pretty, and somebody will long in a moment to fill it up.
But he was making the point again. You can choose what you're going to focus on, and if you're going to be unstoppable, you can't focus on the negative, because it will just drag you down. It's like
I think if you're going to be unstoppable, the negative wouldn't even hit you. You'd just breeze on through.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the other thing that impressed then?
Oh, yes. I've filed my notes thinking I would tell you about it next week. But I had a visit on Friday from a former client, somebody you've met once, actually, somebody who spoke for us at the Globe. I won't name names. But she is a determined woman, single mother of 3. She has created a business now. It had a first iteration. She's in the second iteration. She's invested an awful lot of money in coaching with people like Chris Cardell and Nigel Botterill, who I know Veronica works with as well, and implemented everything they've taught and streamlined it. And she was sitting here on Friday afternoon for 3 hours, but she never looked at her mobile phone once, because her business just runs itself by herself. She made something like, I can't remember what she said, £12,000 to £18,000 a month, I think she said, part-time, several days off a week, children all in private school, fees paid for. She was laid back. There was no phone checking. I mean, she's turned into, it's like a little duckling turning into a beautiful swan. Do you know what I mean? I was so proud of her. I can't tell you.
Yeah, no, she's always been a beautiful swan, that one in waiting. But she was just involved in her family, wasn't she, and supporting her husband and things. So it's
exactly. Exactly. But actually, I've used the word motivated and successful businesswoman and determined. There's a little bit of steel in her, and that's what's the unstoppable as well, isn't it? If you're unstoppable, there's a little bit of grit in there.
You're a weeble. You might wobble, but you don't fall down. Remember the Weebles?
I think the key was she's invested a lot, she's implemented it all, and she's perfected it all the way. So you at the beginning, when you study this stuff, you're a bit slavish and in awe and terribly excited. Then you implement it. Some of it works for you and some of it doesn't. And what you do is you get more confident and you strip out the stuff that doesn't work, and then you emerge, in your new way, and everything's fantastic. But actually, that's 12 years in the making, because I remember the first workshop of mine she came to was in 2003, maybe 2002.
Yeah. And you've touched on something quite interesting there, which is, again, a possible client challenge of the week, which is about investing. investing in yourself. We have touched on it before, but we touched on it very much in terms of tools and
finding the money. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about 1 week. Let's talk about investing in mentoring, because and also investing in things like, I chose to go and stay in this hotel. I had absolute confidence that I would make that money back and more. When I went to Vegas, I had absolute confidence I would make that money back and more. And it's a game changer when you get to that point, when you can invest.
Well, you're saying 100% confidence. Don't talk about it too much now, because I'm writing it down for about 2 weeks' time.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we'll come on.
I've written invested 100% marketing Vegas Cheltenham, so I hope you remember what that means in 3 weeks' time, okay?
It's okay. I'll do my very best, although you can't rely on my memory, as you know.
No. So is that a wrap, Nicola? Are we
That's
there?
a wrap, darling, yes. We can wobble off and it's a wrap.
Speak for yourself. I'm unstoppable, me.
I know, and I can't wait to hear about it. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and we'll see you all lovely listeners next week. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.